Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the new player experience in League of Legends, generally where I feel like it is, and how it's not as bad as a lot of people seem to be making it out to be. Now, there have been a couple of posts that I've seen going around, and I have a little bit of context given that I have recently helped a couple of people learn to play League of Legends, or at least introduce them to the game, so I do feel like I have a bit of pull here in being able to say exactly how the new player experience is, and sort of why I've been thinking about it lately. Generally, a lot of players tend to create smurf accounts, which are alternate accounts, not your main, but usually something you play. You create in order to play games where you're not trying to try hard, or if you want to play with friends who are newer to the game, right? Some players do it specifically to stomp on new players, but we will kind of get to them here in a second. But either way, a lot of times these players create these smurf accounts expecting to be back down at low level, dealing with a lot of players who are brand new to the game and just sort of being able to have super chill games because their competition is not going to be very good at all. And so in this regard, these players sort of go into these new player games expecting super easy games, and for the most part, they're kind of right. They will have new games that are fairly easy right off the bat, where they'll have a bunch of 20-0 games because, hey, they know how to play League of Legends. And then eventually, they end up getting into a couple of games where they end up against a bunch more Smurf accounts, and these Smurf accounts will more or less raise the level of the game back to what their main account may be, maybe a little bit under that. And this inevitably leads to worse gameplay overall because the quality of games is so much lower. See, unlike with their main account, Smurf accounts, playing with a bunch of lower level players, are going to be super imbalanced because you don't know the skill level of all the players involved, right? On your main, where you may have hundreds, if not thousands of games played, it's sort of easy for the system to be able to accurately place where you are in the metrics, whereas in newer games, it sort of doesn't know where you are, and it really doesn't know where your teammates may be. So you may have 3 beginners on your team and be expected to carry, or it may be an entire team of Smurfs against an entire team of newbies who they'll just automatically stomp. And so this leads then to complaints that the new player experience is really bad, because after all, if someone who's playing on a Smurf account is facing off against Smurfs all the other time, especially because they're assuming that newer players will also be facing these same Smurfs, then obviously that means the player experience is bad, right? Because what chance do new players have against Smurfs that actually know how the game works and who are actually quite good at it, right? This also doesn't help that Smurfs tend to be significantly toxic, either treating it as though they're doing something particularly skillful, beating up on brand new players to the game, or just in general getting frustrated with teammates who may be trying to figure out what their champion does for the first time. And now, while I will admit that League of Legends' new player experience is far from ideal for reasons I'll discuss later, I don't think it's nearly as bad as most players think, and this is really for one simple reason. The true skill of a brand new League of Legends player is so much lower than anyone actually thinks it is. And this isn't a knock on anyone who's like brand new to League of Legends. If you're watching this video, this is totally not to knock on you guys, but a lot of times players tend to overestimate how good someone who's brand new at League of Legends is. They tend to assume it's sort of what you would think of an iron tier level of skill would be like. Like, these new players are aware of last hitting is, but bad at it. They're aware of what towers do, but they still tower dive incessantly, assuming they won't die to it. They follow a cookie-cutter build path or a usually terrible build of their own design. They're mechanically not great, but they can at least press buttons on a couple of champions fairly decently, right? That tends to be the assumption that is made about newer players, right? In that they sort of get the gameplay mechanics, they're just really, really bad at them for the most part, and so that leads to most of the problems that they have. However, I can assure you, this is not the case with any actually new player. This may be the case with people who are coming from other MOBA backgrounds, or players who are just pretty bad at League of Legends, or who just aren't devoting the time and energy to getting better at League of Legends. They sort of are familiar with it, they just don't care enough to actually try and improve, which is totally fine if you just play the game for fun. But most brand new players to League of Legends, people who have never played League of Legends before in their life, will not know what a tower is, and they will die to them more times than you would think remotely possible in a game, because they will just walk underneath the tower and then die and then be like, oh, what killed me? And you're like, the tower, dude, the same as it was before. They will not know that last hitting exists. They'll assume they just get gold for free, so why do I need to bother with last hitting? It's only 20 gold a minion. Why would I care? a lot of them don't know how the item system works, if they know it's there at all. They won't even remotely bother trying to actually build items, or if they do, they tend to buy the same basic item over and over and over again. I'm sure we've all seen the builds where it's a bunch of long swords or a bunch of daggers, because they just don't really get that items build into other items. And some may not even know that you can press Q, W, E, and R to cast your abilities, and they manually click the buttons in the HUD in order to cast their abilities, right? Like, that is the level of skill we're talking about brand new players are going to have in League of Legends. Like, legitimately, there's no joke here. That's about the same level of skill that these newer players are going to have. And this is no knock against them. League of Legends is a very, very extremely complicated game. MOBAs, I think, are one of the least user-friendly games to get into. Over every other game. I would say any other genre of game is easier to get into than a MOBA due to the opaque mechanics that these games can have, and because of how punishing they can be if you make any mistakes at all. But either way, essentially, these newer players have no idea what's going on at any stage at all. And this means that you don't even have to have a couple of 20-0, 15-minute games in order to get yourself placed in the Smurf queue, right? Like, you don't have to have those pop-off games to get there. You just have to play competently, like remotely competently in these kinds of games in order to get there. If you have a CS of over 100 at any point in the game, you will probably end up in the Smurf queue because you actually know what last hitting is. And this goes on as well for a lot longer than players assume it will. A lot of times players think that, yeah, okay, the first, 5 or even 10 levels, you're going to have a lot of players who don't really know what's going on. But after that, then it's just bad players. Still not the case. In fact, back in the day, there used to be the sort of adage that a lot of players had, which is don't go into ranked as a fresh level 30 account. Because if you do go into ranked as a fresh level 30 account, you still don't know enough about the game to contribute meaningfully to your team. You want to spend a lot more time actually playing games and developing your skills before you jump into ranked, because if you hit level 30 and immediately go into ranked, you're not actually going to know enough about the game to contribute to it. And so this is the primary reason why players assume that the new player experience is bad, because when they make a Smurf account, they're still bringing all of these skills and all of the knowledge that they have in League of Legends back to the game, right? Because they're assuming, like I said before, that all the players who are playing these games are reasonably competent, that they sort of know what's going on, and that they sort of are aware of a lot of the mechanics of the game, which is not the case at all, right? Newer players really just don't get anything at all. So what this means is that they end up in the Smurf queue right off the bat, which means that they end up playing games that are much harder than they expect instantly, and then they assume that that's universally the case, that everyone is in this sort of situation, and therefore the new player experience has to be bad. And now, this will even hold true for players that have other MOBA experience. Someone coming from Heroes of the Storm or mobile MOBAs like Mobile Legends or whatever your mobile MOBA of choice may be. They likely will have enough know-how to play League of Legends reasonably above a brand new, someone who has never played a MOBA before. They will at least have a fair amount of competency and a fair amount of ability to say, even if mechanically some things are different and you have to do things like last hit in League of Legends, as opposed to in Heroes of the Storm where you don't have to, but at the very least, they are familiar with the fundamental mechanics of MOBAs and sort of how things are supposed to be, which then means that because they're playing with a degree of competency, unlike brand new League of Legends players that have no knowledge whatsoever, as I've been saying, they end up in the Smurf queue as well against people who do play League of Legends and who play it very well in some situations because they're just smurfing. Now, this is sort of a problem in and of itself. If you're trying to try out League of Legends and you end up against a bunch of people who are really good at the game and who style on you all the time, you're probably less likely to want to continue playing it. So that is a bit of a flaw in the sort of system that Riot have set up. But it also does mean that these Smurfs that people assume are everywhere at lower levels of play are really nowhere at lower levels of play, because all the newer players are not even remotely seeing Smurfs, or if they do, they're only seeing them in the first game or two they play before those Smurfs all get banished to the Shadow Realm that is Smurf queue. Now, I would assume that in general, I feel like that this is the biggest reason why the lower level player isn't as bad. Now, I'm not going to argue that it's good. As I was kind of saying before, MOBAs are super, super hard to learn. Just a lot of things conceptually don't make any sense to beginners. And like I said before as well, MOBAs are supremely difficult to come back from if you make mistakes. A single mistake in a MOBA can immediately throw a lane, and you're more or less hoping that your opponent therefore makes a mistake right afterwards. And there can be a lot of champions that have mechanics that just don't make any sense, or which the counterplay is not entirely obvious. Something like Mordekaiser's Death Realm, for example, I think is a good choice for a mechanic that the counterplay doesn't seem very clear. If you just press R on the guy and he's banished to the Shadow Realm, and there's nothing you can do except run away from Mordekaiser and die anyways, right? A lot of players won't understand things like building items that are specifically designed to counter certain playstyles or certain champions entirely. A lot of players may not also understand certain champion mechanics, things like Volibear's second W reactivation, for example, how much damage that's going to do and how much healing that's going to give him, and the fact that it doesn't consume the mark, right? Players may understand, well, okay, he hit me once, which didn't do anything, and then he hit me again and I died instantly. What's up with that? So, in general, MOBAs are hard to learn in the first place, but I definitely wouldn't say that the sort of new player experience is being ruined due to smurfs. I think we're good on that approach. So, either way, let me know what you think of any of this down in the comment section below, especially if you are also a newer player or have recently played with a newer player and want to give your thoughts on the low-rank player experience. I would love to hear your guys' feedback down in the comment section below, especially if you have any thoughts about how this could be improved in the future. I would absolutely love to hear your guys' feedback on that. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.